Is it weird that the American flag is losing all appeal to me? When I was younger it was a flag, it was a symbol of my home. Now whenever I see an American flag I know I don't want to be around those people. I just associate the American flag with bigotry and anti-intellectualism. I think it would be weird if your naive view on your birth country didn't change over time. Similarly, it'd be weird if your newfound aversion to the flag didn't eventually develop more nuance. A sort of "oh, they're flying the flag. Might be a racist dickhead, might be alright" sort of situation. I will say the good thing about the previous administration is that they made it a lot easier to identify some of these people because they started flying Confederate flags and Trump flags with it. They started flying Confederate flags. Started? I was at a farmer's market on 9/11 this past week, and unfortunately there were a bunch of anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers and Trump supporters walking around with giant American flags there, I suppose to stir up stuff. Masks were required at the market. Along the street there was a table where people were handing out little American flags. As we walked past they offered us some, and because of all of the anti-maskers nearby our first reaction was to deny the flags because we didn't want to be associated with them. It wasn't until we walked away that we realized they were vets handing them out because it was 9/11s, not because they were anti-maskers. The American flag has a weird double meaning right now, and I certainly don't want to be seen flying one cause of much of a symbol of hate it has become. Your response makes me so sad, as a proud American. Much of a symbol of hate has become. It's so unbelievably sad that patriotism is associated with racism these days. This is the prime example of taking the exception as the rule. Just because someone is proud to be in a country that has helped so many, granted we've heard a lot as well, as a history guy, don't I know it? They are related to bigotry and intolerance. To me, if the American flag represents hate, then the ISIS flag represents respecting women and LGBTQ+ rights. I think that nationalism in general is a bizarre concept. Nationalism does nothing but teach you to hate people you have never met and to take pride in accomplishments you had no part in. Doug Stanhope. I thought of this exact quote as well, so take my upvote, good sir. The line between nationalism and patriotism is very thin. The biggest difference is with how the ideas about outsiders. Nationalism is inclusive only to one's citizens of their nation, while patriotism is the love, devotion and support for your country of citizenship. I like describing it this way: patriotism is loving the ideal your country could become and striving to achieve that ideal and overcome the flaws, and nationalism is thinking that your country is better than any other no matter what, and your nation is the greatest among others. That way, by being a patriot you can love your nation, its history and the potential it could achieve, but hate and oppose the road it is following right now. Perfect definitions. The biggest difference between the two is that nationalism is all-inclusive and looks at others as lesser than. Loyal to my country. Always. Loyal to my government. Only when deserved, and it hasn't been deserved in a mighty long time. I don't disagree with you. I'm loyal to my country, to the core ideals that our country was founded on. I don't understand the urge to be loyal to my country over any others. Like, what does that even mean beyond vague ideals? I lived in Germany for years. Can't imagine ever thinking, yeah, great, but America first. On a practical level I definitely prefer it to many others, but not all. And loyal definitely doesn't seem like the right word for that. I don't feel any more loyal to my country than I do to my state, county, or city. Having lived in a few places, all I have learned is that love and serve the community you live in. Don't worry about country, borders, and citizenship. Patriotism as you'd have it is the soft sell of nationalism that liberals play when they want to change nothing. Which is always. There's no fucking difference. Ultranationalists describe themselves as patriots. Too many assets using it for a prop during their horribly un-American activities. Cheapens everything it symbolizes. For instance, beating a cop with a flagpole with the flag attached, or using it for a cape while ransacking the Capitol. Who call themselves patriots. Yay, like, why be proud of a country if you've done nothing for it but being born there? A country is just a man-made concept, and people are unlucky to be born in their country. Be proud of RNG, I guess. I hate this kind of thinking. Are you not proud of your parents and grandparents if they did awesome and amazing things? If humanity as a whole reversed climate change within the next 5 years, but you didn't really have anything to do with it, wouldn't you still be proud of humankind and proud to be part of humankind? Nationalism is perfectly reasonable. When someone doesn't have anything else to be proud of, they become proud of their heritage that they had absolutely no control of. H.J. It's interesting to me that in many other countries they don't fly their flag like the USA does. Yes, government buildings fly it, banks perhaps, but not residences, not mounting it to vehicles, etc. In many countries of the world, the attitude is, why do I need to fly the flag of my country when I live in that country? It seems redundant to them. In the USA, we have cheapened the meaning of the flag by overdoing it. Of course, if more Americans actually traveled the world, they would be more open-minded, but that's another issue. The USA is so huge, travel outside of the US becomes prohibitively expensive. I just got back from my first trip to Europe. I'm 32. I've wanted to travel my whole life, see the ocean, see other cultures. Now, I'm having a kid. First hospital bill came in. Between the cost of having a family and my wife's student loans, that trip was once in a lifetime. Maybe someday. When I retire. If I retire. I'm 23 and have never been outside of the US. Everyone else in my family has, but I can't afford the travel, so I haven't. I've always wanted to travel abroad someday. Think about the Pacific and work around trying to find a deal on a flight. It can be much cheaper in the end with lower room and good costs than much of Europe. Can't recommend Thailand enough. Malaysia as well. And Canada. Quebec City is fantastic. To be honest, if I lived in the US I probably wouldn't have been outside of it because it's so vast. I live in the UK and I've only been out of it a handful of times. Plus, that insanely expensive rip-off insurance-based healthcare system that you poor souls are tortured with is designed to trap you in your state, never mind your country. I blew all of my COVID money on a 2.5 month through Western Europe at 25. What do I do next? Fuck if I know. I just know I'm used to being broke, so it'll be okay. I used to be broke, but now I'm broke with better experiences. This is the way. Travel within North America is about $100 $240 a ticket depending on distance. The cheapest tickets to the UK are roughly around $580 at the low end. That increased step is enough to put such trips out of reach for a lot of Americans. You can definitely find lower. I just found a flight from Florida to London for $318. Right now is the cheapest time ever in history to fly. You just gotta know how to look. I personally know the methods, but just use Scott's cheap flights email list. It's not just about being expensive. The US geologically checks nearly every box of interesting features somewhere, some of which are actually only found here. If you want to go somewhere to see something natural, odds are you don't need to leave the country. You are welcome to move here. Unfortunately, my and my wife's families are all here, and I do want my soon-to-be a kid to be around their family, at least while growing up. But thank you for the offer. It's okay to have a once-in-a-lifetime trip. You've had it, and will always have the memories. In a few years your children will be old enough to travel, and you can take another once-in-a-lifetime trip with them too. I'm someone who has lived in both Europe and America. Take it from me when I say that Europeans, and many others including Aussies, Kiwiks, etc., do not understand how large America is. Even for poorer Europeans it is not too much of a stretch to travel to a different country for a vacation. When you factor in little or no vacation time, low pay, and the days it takes to cross the continent, it becomes a wonder so many Americans can't see their own country, and that doesn't even compare to flying over an ocean. If you compare Americans leaving their countries, you would need to compare it to Brits or Greeks visiting Africa, the Americas, or Asia, and I don't mean Turkey, to have apples to apples comparison. It happens, but not as much as you'd think. Edit reminds me of a conversation with Europeans about taking a few hundred kilometers journey to the coast. I laughed and pointed out that you can't get out of some states' provinces in a few hundred kilometers, let alone to a coast. They were shocked to say the least, then pulled out a map to compare. Especially Europeans have a warped sense of geographic scale due to their surroundings, from my experience. A lot of Americans have a story like this. I met these Europeans in the US and we struck up a conversation. I asked them where in the US they were going to visit. They had just arrived, and this was in Boston. We're going to New York, Washington, Miami, New Orleans, Dallas, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle. Sounds like a nice vacation. How long are you here? 2 weeks. Great, so you have all your plane flights booked? The look of complete surprise and dumbfoundedness immediately takes over all of their faces. No, we're driving. Say what? You can't physically do that in 2 weeks. I was so blown away, I didn't say anything. Have a nice time. I should have said good luck. People make fun of Americans for not knowing geography. This place is huge, people. Look at a map before you come. It's not brain surgery. One of my teachers was British. She thought she could take the bus an hour and a half to work every day. Lmao. This does bring up an interesting point that US public transportation isn't really well done compared to other countries. It's because the US is spread out and it simply isn't cost effective or even practical to do it European style. The distances are great and the demand simply isn't there. Add to that Americans are culturally much more individualistic and prefer to hit the open road in their own vehicles. Yeah, mainland USA is comparable in size to all of Europe. And that would include tourist hotspots like Belarus, Ukraine, and Lapland to be a fair comparison. Why don't Americans travel to other countries more? If you drive far enough north you end up having to traverse a vast expanse of cold and mostly uninhabited land before you ever get to another country, unless you start on the far east or west. If you drive far enough south you end up having to traverse a vast expanse of hot, barren, and mostly uninhabited land before you ever get to another country. If you drive far enough east or west you run into an ocean that is very difficult and/or expensive to cross. I agree with this. As an American who does have some money to travel and a fairly decent amount of vacation days, I usually use it to do yearly visits somewhere new in the US. Maybe one day, if I've visited all the states and things I want to see here, I might do something international. As you said, it's so big. Basically, state hopping is the equivalent of the Europeans country hopping. Europeans think 100 miles is a long distance. Americans think 100 years is a long time. I think Aussies get it. Plus, we're even further from many traditional tourist destinations. Wasn't trying to disparage your countrymen, mate. But I think Aussies and Kiwis have a bit of a different perspective in that you fly everywhere anyways with not much in between besides sand and water. Also, unless traveling past your corner of the world, most places tend to be cheaper for you. Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, etc., with obvious exceptions. Regardless, I am always impressed by the amount of Australians and New Zealander that travel. Almost like you're all attempting to escape, lol. I feel for all of you who have gotten stuck overseas since the apocalypse. It's a bit of a leftover Eurocentric view of the world from the days when we were just a British outpost at the far end of the world. The real world was out there, and we were just a colony. Which also meant that we didn't tend to explore the amazing parts of the world that are relatively close to us because we were fixated on going back to Mother England, Europe, and then the USA. We call it the cultural cringe, and while it's definitely got better in past 30 years, it still persists in the impulse for people to go and see the world. A fair few of us do drive from place to place here on holidays. It's a bit of a staple to have childhood holidays that involved the whole family jammed into the car for 12+ hours to get there. When I was a younger bloke and living in Canberra, I'd make the 8-hour each-way drive to Melbourne to see my girlfriend probably once a month. Thankfully she eventually relocated to Canberra, and then thankfully we both got out of Canberra back to Melbourne anyway. But yeah, driving is a bit different when you drive through empty country areas for 100 km with a town only every hour or so. Apparently, Aussies do get it. As to the cultural cring, that's news to me. Apparently some suggested the same thing may have existed in Canada, where I live, although I think it may have drastically diminished before my life, as the only examples of a common sense of inferiority I remember from childhood would be of Canadian television production, which had been subsidized, but I think has since disappeared for the most part. I did learn something completely new today, thank you stranger. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Hoi, hoi, hoi. Our equivalent chant of pride. Thumbs up. That was the spirit in which I was offering the comment, not to nitpick, but to share knowledge. Canada and Australia have so much in common. In my eyes, the US as a whole is akin to Europe, while states are akin to European nations. To a European, traveling to another country is like crossing state lines here in the US. I've been around the world a few times and I've lived in 3 different countries, in Europe, South America and North America. I still love my American flag and have a flagpole in my front yard. People from the USA don't need to travel the world to be more open-minded. For starters, they just need to consume things that are not domestic. As a non-English speaker, I was flabbergasted in the Parasite Oscar speech when the director told that subtitles are just a tiny obstacle. Because I've used them since I was 7, so them being this great inconvenience to people from the USA just shows that they are not used seeing things from different countries. TBF, it's a lot easier to travel to other countries living in Europe. The only budget-friendly travel options for Americans are Canada, Mexico, and the Caribbean. Yeah, hard to travel when I had to move back in with my parents after my breakup. It's not that we don't want to, it's that most of us are too fucking poor to shell out a couple hundred for a plane ticket, then who knows how much for your living accommodations, food, entertainment, etc. It might shock you to know most of us aren't living a Hollywood lifestyle, but we're living paycheck to paycheck. I work full-time and make under $25,000 a year before taxes. I don't get vacation time on top of it. Americans aren't cultured because we can't fucking afford it. The most prominent players in today's international world are all flag flyer countries. It's probably just a flex. It is tacky as hell. Because your country is based on an idea, not a place. It's a special place, for better or worse. Take it from an immigrant here. As someone from outside the US, I definitely don't understand it. Are you afraid you might forget which country you're in and need the flags as a reminder? Except on National Day. Then all the flags come out. You say that, as if people can travel the world at the drop of a hat. I'm Canadian and I look up to the better parts of America. Be proud but don't be crazy PLZ. Thanks neighbor D. Be proud but don't be crazy PLZ. We'll annex you soon enough. What does per second mean? I keep seeing it but have no idea why. We've had one flying for a long time. I'm not letting the right take my flag, I'm left of left. I recently bought and hung one in my bedroom for this exact purpose. I found myself thinking fucking traitor after seeing a pickup fly a US flag and a Confederate flag. Then I thought I don't want my country's flag to mean this. Goddamn it, this is what I love about my country. I'm as middle of the road as it gets, but I love seeing my flag. Most of my family is pretty Republican, and they love their flag. Most of my co-workers are left, and they love their flag. Americans are proud of our country. I'd put up a gay pride flag and an American flag together just to piss homophobic people off. Why though? Do you forget in which country you live, or why would you fly the flag in your own country? Perhaps you're just losing your ties to nationalism in general, in addition to the flag being co-opted by groups you dislike. Absolutely wild shit under the guise of patriotism isn't new, maybe you're just noticing it more now because of the current political paradigm? You worded this perfectly. I've felt the same since paying more attention to the state of our country overall. I think you spend too much time on the internet. No, you're not wrong, I'd say I'm still fairly patriotic, but my love for the flag has definitely evolved because of those people. And just the constant flag waving at sports games. Yeah, if the only thing you think of when you see the American flag is bigotry and anti-intellectualism, you may want to start having conversations with people outside of your comfort zone or with people with different worldviews. I'm not saying you have to be someone who wears the flag as a cape and is obnoxious on the 4th of July. I'm just saying, there's so much more than those two hostile descriptions of the American flag. I mean, that's your choice. To me, the whole bigotry anti-intellectual is a bit off. Don't let a very small minority give you the wrong idea. Most people who either have an American flag outside their house or whatever are rent bigots and anti-intellectuals. But whatever you do or feel, it's all you, man. I may feel different, but I can respect someone standing by their morals or beliefs. Hey Asselinwa, I counted 69 words in your comment. Nice. 40% of America is very small? Most people I see waving the American flag or wearing flag colors squarely fit into this category. Over 40% of voters voted for Trump. It's not a small minority, it's almost half the population. You're just buying into the media hype about American flags equals hillbilly plus Trump plus Republican, all of which must be hated or you don't belong with them. Unfortunately, most of my liberal friends are the same way and don't fly their flags like they used to because they don't want to be accused. It's just sad. But who's really responsible for that? Be the voice of reason. Nationalism is fine, it's the fringes that give all sides a bad name. I think you might be confusing nationalism with patriotism. I'm pretty leftist, but I would say I'm patriotic. I want what's best for the country. I'll volunteer in my community, vote, and partake in all my civic duties. Nationalism, however, is taking that too far. It's saying your country is the best. That it can't do wrong. It's saying that your country's people has no responsibility to the rest of the world. But we do. The USA is a melting pot. We're composed of many people from almost as many nations and ethnicities. Nationalism is incongruent with that. However, I can get together with all the people in our country to take pride in the good we've done and demand we take action to do better than we have.